Hi my friend, in this video we're going to be making Latin house drums inspired by Dennis Cruz's song, Bonito. And we're going to find out if we can do this in under 30 minutes by using the 80-20 rule of Latin house drum production. What you're listening to right now is the song that we'll be working on. And what you're looking at right now is the Ableton project file that we'll be working on. In particular, we're going to focus on this drum group right here. We're going to go over things in the order that I actually built out each one of these layers so you can follow along as you're building out your own drums. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video. We'll be doing a full recap of the 80-20 rule so that you can be going through your drums super duper fast. Because all in all, the drums here only took me about 25 minutes to make, and this song fully mixed, mastered, arranged, and ready to go, I'm going to say it was about 5 hours for me to finish all this. So with that said, if you want to finish songs faster too, just like this, I've made you a free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that I use to completely finish one song like this every single week. Just visit the link that is on screen now or in the description to grab the Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit for free. And if you want to take things to the next level, you can also find a link to this video's project files in the description as well. So with that said, let's jump into this. Alright. So for this one, when it comes to kind of this like Latin infused tech house kind of drums, the main thing is that it's basically just standard house drums. Sometimes the kick is mixed a little quieter, I would say, and then it's like layering on a lot of like really cool Latin percussion. So that said, let's start off with the kick, and the main kick that I'm using here is this RPS kick from Rocket Powered Sounds. So shout out to them for sponsoring this video, as well as hooking up the community. So anyone who is part of the membership will get this. Let's reset that. That's a little bit too salesy. Alright. So when it comes to kind of this like Latin infused house drums, the main thing is it's more or less just house drums with, I would say sometimes the kick is layered a little bit quieter in the mix, and some of the sample selections is maybe a little bit different, maybe more organic sounds, as well as then just like layering on really cool like Latin percussion. So let's dive into this. The main thing right off the bat is that I do have Dennis Cruz's song Bonito right here in the project file, and I've set it up so when I press the S key, I can flick back and forth between what I have and what they have. The first thing with the kick, and with any of this really, is first to pick a good sample that sounds similar to what you're referencing, and then set the right volumes. So the way that I went about this is a little bit different. So what I actually did was over here in the intro section of Dennis Cruz's song, I grabbed a kick drum, and then I dropped that into what I created here, this thing called R kick. So basically extracting the kick from the actual reference track, making some slight adjustments, adjusting the filter envelope, bringing the filter frequency down, bringing up the volume to velocity a bit. I think I might have played a little bit around with attack decay, sustain and release, just to kind of get the kick isolated as well as possible. Then what I did was I actually froze it, as you can see here, then cut it up that freeze, and then I've been playing with Ableton 12's sample similar sound file, and so this is really cool. So what I did after that is I clicked it, and then I said show in browser, like this, and then from there, that frozen file is right there, and you can actually click like this, and then get a bunch of similar sounds. And basically just went through that process, and then ended up with the kick that you're hearing now. So this is a cool way that you can extract and isolate the kick from a song, but then replace it with a higher quality sample from your library that sounds similar. And so what I ended up with, let's just get back to the area that we need to be in, which is over here. What I ended up with is this sample here, RPS Miss Kick, which is from Rocket Powered Sounds. Shout out to them for actually sponsoring this video and hooking up anyone who downloads the project files. You'll be able to use their samples that I have put in this video, which is great. Other than that, the only processing that's going on with the kick, I usually try to keep it pretty like nothing going on. I just have this channel EQ where I'm bringing down the lows like the end here, more of as an arrangement trick more than anything. So really, that's kind of the main thing. Getting a solid kick is going to be super important, so take your time finding the right samples, flicking back and forth between this and what you have. Really focusing on the kick as you do this. Trying to find a similar sound and a similar energy level, and just really the main thing here is getting the volumes correct. When you get the volumes correct, that's that 80-20 rule right there, really. So, and then the next thing after that I added in was these snares. So let's take a look and listen to the snares. So different for sure. Maybe this is like kind of a Latin cool vibe or something like that. I'm not familiar with what this pattern might be, but it's like a little bit different. So it's like mostly on the 2 and the 4, like normal snares, but there's also this kind of little flam bit. So it's like something playing right just before it kind of adds that, like, it's called the flam, I believe, like kind of like a little roll there. So it's a little bit different. It's cool. It's very interesting. Take a look at the pattern there where we created if you'd like to. Then in terms of the samples, I'm using a PIV DGK, another one from Rocket Powered Sounds, the Picking Sides perk, and then this other one, SMT. I don't even know where that's from, to be honest. Just layered on a couple different snare sounds, kind of going for that like organic-y sound, I would say. And then again, main thing is listening to and then ours. I feel like even our snares might even be a little too loud, so I'd probably just bring that down just a little bit here, just to get those volumes right. Because again, the volumes, picking the right sounds, making sure that the notes are hitting the right place, and then the volumes is really the main thing. Then under that, running into the standard channel strip that I have, so just removing a bunch of the lows, and then adding a little bit of Ableton saturation here, just to add more like fullness to the sound and a bit of grit. Next up is the hi-hat, so let's take a look and listen to that. So, main thing here is, I wonder if I did anything crazy. No. So basically it's just on like that offbeat, standard kind of hat or open hi-hat kind of position. The only thing I've done is, like, if you have a look at the velocities, it's just like it's not even every other note, there's just like a slight change. I added a little bit of groove that I could kind of hear in the track. So again, very slight, but you can see here, the main thing is picking the right sample and then getting the volume right. Because other than that, if we have a look at any of the processing here, what do we have going on here? Standard channel strip stuff, so removing a bunch of the lows. And then some of just one knob of Ableton saturation to fill out the sound a little bit. So then let's move over to the open hi-hat. Let's have a look and listen. So same pattern, same placement as the hi-hat. In this case, mostly just using like a kind of a shaker sound, which I feel like is kind of layered in the actual track. There's no traditional open hi-hat. So just layered in a shaker sound, and then run the volume slightly, and then yeah, this one's mixed in quite a bit, compared to the other hi-hat. And then we're just removing a whole bunch of the lows here, shelving out a little bit of the highs to kind of like mix it in a bit, so it's kind of blending in with the rest of the track. And then that's really it. Again, volumes is kind of the main thing. And then at that point, I moved on to, usually once I get like kind of the core sounds down, so like the kick, the snare, the hats, open hats, then I like to usually add in top loops to add some vibe and character, and that's a really big part of this sound, I would say, because it's going to be hard to program in really humanized sounding cool like bongos and shakers and stuff like that. So I feel like finding good loops is important. So with that said, let's have a listen and look at the first loop that I ended up adding. Hear that shaker. So some processing I did do is, like, in the clip, set to beats, changing the warp to the arrow pointing to the right, and then dragging down this value here kind of tightens up the sound a little bit, helps it blend in with the rest of the core sounds that you have going on. Listening to the reference track for a second, you can hear some kind of shakers. I think mine's mixed a bit louder, but I liked how it sounded. This is definitely a part where you can start deviating from the reference track that you have, because you don't want to, in my opinion, you don't want to just a full carbon copy. You want it to start to take on its own identity, so you could actually use it as a track. At least that's my approach to it. So once that is in there, we're just doing a little bit of the standard channel strip stuff. So this is just automatic. I set it so it's automatically removing some of the 200, so it just makes moves easier. You can see it's not really doing anything because the sample's already been, has a lot of the lows removed. But then what we are doing is I'm running this into this transient shaper. So this is the Free Kill Hearts transient shaper. I've just mapped the crucial controls to an Ableton rack, so it's just a lot easier to make moves real quick. So just bringing down some of the stain to kind of tighten up that sound a little bit more. Then we have this rack here where I've combined sidechain with saturation. So it's just a one knob shaper device, and Max for Live, going to quarter notes and then just ducking volume utility. So that way it's easy to do one knob to easily get that kind of pumping effect that can be cool and groovy and dancey, and then also make room for the kick and the bass, which is super important. And you don't have to do any kind of like sidechain and routing and all that stuff every time. It's just drag up the knob to taste and then you move on. So I like that workflow. And then just Ableton Saturator, same thing, making it quick access. And it also makes it so you're kind of using your ears a bit more than your eyes, which I think can be really useful. So just adding in a bunch of saturation here to kind of fill out the sound a little bit. We're not using the width, but we'll get into that. I'm sure at some point we'll be adding that in. So let's move on to the next track, which is this top loop here. And it's subtle, so I'm also going to bring the volume up for a moment so you can really zone in on it. And then I'm going to bring it back down to where it was nestled in. So you can see, very subtle. It's just adding a bit of extra energy and vibe and character to the loop, but it's not at all a core sound that's like mixed really loud or anything like that. So let's take a look, see if I did anything crazy. So again, I tightened up the transients quite a bit more. Helps it nestle into the rest of the loop a bunch, I would say. And then standard channel strip stuff, just cutting off the lows where it needs to be cut off normally. A little bit of one knob sidechain, a little bit of one knob saturation, and then we're doing a little bit of this width plugin, which is another free plugin called Wider. And I've just, again, attached the core like knobs to this rack so I don't have to open up VSTs and load the VSTs and all that. Like this strip comes in every time. Should mention to grab the project files, you can grab all these things, of course. And what we're doing here is with the width, kind of just pushing this sound to the left and right, making it a bit more stereo. And then also while doing that, it can kind of free up the center so that like the core sounds that are pan center are, you know, that's the area they're taking up. It's more prominent, and you're leaving space for it to do that instead of having things kind of clashing. With that said, let's move on to the next loop that was added, which is going to get more fun and bongo-y, I think. I'm going to bring up the volume. And then I'm going to bring it back down. So let's have a look, see if I did anything. Okay, just left this one preserved as is. No like transient changing there, at least on the clip. Let's have a look. Removing some of the lows here, a little bit of one knob sidechain, a little bit of one knob saturation. And this time I use this Wider plugin's ability to not just make things stereo, but also bring things in a little bit. So in this case, I wanted this sound to be a bit more center. Other than that, running into this auto filter. And what this auto filter is doing is I've automated the envelope so that it's slowly changing how this filter is reacting. So it's kind of changing the sound of it a little bit over time. So it's just set to 16th. So it's in time with the song and it's slowly adjusting the envelope. So when a transient hits, it's going to move the filter position like up or down, depending on where this value is. And so it's just adding some movement essentially is what's going on here. It's very subtle, very, very, very subtle. Let's move on to the next loop, which is this one right here. So fucking cool. This one is clearly louder. It's a lot more of the vibe. So less subtle. Let's take a look, see if we did anything crazy here. Nope, it's all good. So just found some cool, like, I think I just looked up Latin drums on Splice, to be completely honest. And let's take a look. So again, standard channel strip behavior here going on, removing a bunch of the lows, making room for the kick and the bass so that all the lows is taken care of from that. Nothing's too conflicted or anything like that, or frequency overlap and that kind of stuff. We're avoiding that. Then we're just doing some one-up sidechain to get a little bit of a pumping vibe. And then I think at this point, it could be a good idea to flick back and forth for the reference. So it's definitely starting to move in a different direction. But as it's doing that, it's still a good idea to somewhat keep some idea of the balance of how yours is turning out to the reference track. Definitely a lot more important getting those core elements down, and then I think adding like top loops and stuff is where you could really deviate and make your track unique, and add an extra character and yeah, take a new direction. With that said, let's keep moving on to the next loop that's been added, which is this. More subtle, so I'll bring up the volume. Another freaking really cool, like Latin-y kind of sounding loop. Let's take a look to see if I did anything funky. No, so all good. So let's move into the track processing. So for this one, standard channel strip stuff again, just removing some of the lows, a bit of sidechain for pumping, and that's about it. One thing you could also notice too is we have these two different bongo loops. This first one's panned a little to the left, this other one's panned a little bit to the right. So just trying to add some kind of like, use the space in our track a bit, or in our song a bit. So that's it, super simple stuff. So let's look over to the next one, which is this. Bring up the volume a little for you. Cool, so just another cool shaker loop. I think if we look, yeah, so that's just another shaker loop. I cut it up a little bit because I think the original one was, I don't know, it just kind of started deviating and sounding all weird and too loose. So I just kind of cut it up a little bit so it sounds a little bit more consistent and just kind of grooves in a way that I liked a little bit more. This one's panned hard to the left. I don't know why, I just wanted to, I guess. I don't know if there's a shaker in the... No, if anything, I hear a shaker on the right side, but so that's just what I decided to do. And then standard channel strip, we're moving a bunch of the lows, which is an automatic move because you can see it's already getting rid of a bunch of the stuff here. And then just a little bit of sidechain to pump things up. And then what I did, it's kind of an arrangement thing. So in some bits, there's like, it sounds as it is. And then on the second half, you can see here, I added in this additional loop here. So let's just go ahead and focus on that. Bring up the volume for you. So it's a bit more subtle, and it's a little bit more of an arrangement trick. So you can see here, if we zoom out, the idea is like a couple bars is without that, and then the next couple bars come in and add this additional layer. So just kind of changing this track over time, adding and decreasing energy, keeping things interesting. So a bit of an arrangement thing there, but then other than that, just found some cool sounds. Standard channel strip stuff. You can see it's just like I didn't even adjust it. It's nice to have it set up so that when you add in a new track, it's automatically removing the lows and adding some sidechain. That way you don't have to do those things every time. But yeah, that's a look at the overall drums. I will go over this in the mixing video, but here's a quick look at what we got going on for the overall drum bus processing. Running into some K-clip, just kind of controlling the dynamics, adding in some parallel processing here, parallel compression, fattening things up, tightening things up. Same thing, idea with running through a saturator, fattening things up, making things a bit more cohesive. The idea is to run all the tracks through similar processing. It kind of creates a vibe and ties things together a little bit. And then one last K-clip, just kind of controlling the dynamic range a little bit. I will go into that in a future video. And so before we go into a look at kind of the 80-20 rule, so we can do a nice recap of this so that you can be finishing songs faster and kind of just a good understanding of how you can apply all these principles to your own music. I just want to mention that this video is sponsored by our good friends over at Rocket Powered Sounds. The kick that we used here, as well as one of the snares, was from their Ultimate Sample Pack, which is a massive sample pack filled with over 1,000 usable and iconic sounds. And as a special bonus, you can get 30% off of that Ultimate Sample Pack. Just visit the link that's on screen now or in the description, and be sure to use the coupon code ULTIMATEBESTFRIENDS to get that 30% off. Thank you again to Rocket Powered Sounds for hooking up our community here. And with that said, let's jump back into the 80-20 rule for this video. Hi, my friend, Matt from Best Friends Club here. And if you've been paying attention, then you probably figured out what the 80-20 rule is when it comes to building out your drums. The goal here is to get 80% of the results with only 20% of the time, energy, or effort. And because the first key to the 80-20 rule for drums is to use a reference track, we're making sure that we're effortlessly hitting 80% of a very professional sounding track. In particular, we focus on nailing the pattern, sound selection, and the volume compared to the reference track so that we keep things fast and focused as we're building out our drums. The second key of the 80-20 rule here is to mix as you go in an extremely streamlined way by only focusing on the volume as well as a simple repeatable channel strip for each track that we're adding to our drums. The third and final key is to repurpose your old project files and to build up a suite of powerful templates, Ableton racks, and one knob effects that you've personalized and curated over time. If you'd like to get a head start by downloading all the racks, templates, and all the files that you've seen me use in the Ableton project file for this video, or if you'd just like to take a closer look at any of the techniques or tracks you saw me work on in this video at your own pace, you can find a link to this video's project files on screen now and at the second link that's in the YouTube description. I'm recreating a different song from the Beatport top charts every single week and making the project files available to anyone who wants them. You'll also get access to a private Discord where you can ask me and the community questions, as well as share tracks for feedback. If you or your music are not quite ready for a shot in the arm like that, I've also made you a completely free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that have helped me figure out how to completely finish one new song each and every single week. And you can grab that free Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit by visiting the first link that's in the YouTube description here. However, if you just feel like staying on YouTube for now, that's totally fine. Save that link for later and check out this playlist of videos where I remake drums from other songs from the Beatport top charts. Or if you want to take what you learned in this video to the next level, definitely check out this video right here.